You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Scottish Football Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. I'd like to welcome this week's panel. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the show St Cuthbert Wanderers manager Josh Gardner. Josh, welcome back. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure to be back on, mate. I'm hoping that I get one of the hat-trick balls that used to get in the soccer AM. So if I get back the third time, I expect a wee hat-trick ball through my door, mate.
All depends on performance. We're going to be your first one. It's a pleasure to have you back. And it's also a pleasure to welcome on his debut appearance in the show from the Fantasy Football Podcast, Donnie Robertson. Donnie, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
No, that's fine. It's happy to help. It's good to be on. I just wish I was talking about better results, but we'll come to that.
We'll certainly probably get into that later on. You can tell by your mood. You're probably not the best time to get you on, but we did have this arranged before that game, so we'll maybe get into that later on. But busy weekend as always. This is our second last show before we go on a wee World Cup break. We're going to have a couple of weeks just to have a wee break for the show, and then we'll maybe get back into it just kind of before the World Cup goes back. But let's get down to business. There's a lot to get through here. There's a lot of goals as well. I think if this isn't a record for goals scored in a Premiership week, I'll be very surprised because there is some amount of goals to talk about. But we will start at Celtic Park on Saturday. Celtic left it very late, very dramatic comeback to crush Dundee United's dreams of snatching a point at Parkhead. 4-2 victory for Celtic. Kyogo and Abada with 2 injury time goals as Dundee United clawed it back to 2-2. But Celtic, again, Josh, we speak about this a lot. Ange's philosophy is we never stop, and again, it's an attitude that it's maybe a cliche, but it's certainly an attitude that's displayed time and time again. This Celtic team, 2 seasons ago, this Celtic team don't win that game. I think the rivals don't win that game yesterday, as we see, and we'll talk about that later on. But Celtic, again, a massive 3 points, and again, a weekend where they've probably put a hand on the Championship trophy.
I'd agree, mate. It'd be hard to see Celtic slip up now, to be honest with you, especially the way it's going at Rangers. But as you say, they never stop. They just keep going, they go. And I think what's also important as well is when it's not going well, they don't change what they do. They just keep battering down the drums, and they've got that style that they always refer back to. And I think that's why a philosophy and a style of play, whatever you want to call it, is really important, because if you've got that in place, and in times of need and in times of when you're needing to maybe pull something out the bag or whatever, and you rely on the experiences which they've got, and they know that style of play works. They just need to keep banging the drum, so to speak, and they eventually get the rewards for it. And normally, you look back. If I remember when I was last on the podcast, Celtic dug out a late victory as well. So, and everybody was saying like that's normally one of the moments where you look back and go, that's a title winning moment. And again, that looks like another one as well. And as you said, I seem to be going for Celtic, but not going for Rangers. And we all know it's a 2-horse race in Scotland. So I was buzzing with that, and then even more buzzing when I saw the Rangers result today. Don't want to rub salt into your wounds, though, lad. So I'll just try and keep a lid on it.
Bonnie, the thing that gets me with Celtic, and I say this repeatedly, and Josh has hit on it there is this thing of never changing the way Celtic play. As I say, any team losing an 87th minute goal would get a shock to the system, and it's very hard to come back from that. It's very hard to get the points, and we'll touch on Dundee United as well. But to come back and not only score 1 goal late on, but then score another one, it does show this mentality that Celtic have of don't stop, don't accept a 3-2, don't just because you've won the game stop and think that's it. Celtic then go and score another and put the game to bed, and it's so refreshing, I think, for Celtic, because, as I say, the weekend's worked out brilliantly for them, but it nearly didn't. But it shows you this tremendous recovery they've got of just digging in, not stopping, getting that late goal, and again, it's worked out so well for them this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that's going to help them is, we talk about Fergie time and just having that desire to win, but with VAR coming fresh on the scene, there's going to be a lot more injury time within games. You saw with the Aberdeen game, the time it took to make that decision and award the penalty, then they had to retake the penalty. You're seeing 7-8 minutes added on in almost each half. So a team like Celtic, that's ideal for them. It's just giving them more opportunity. And they just keep going. And unfortunate as it is, I was glad when it was 2-2. And then 5 minutes later, I checked my phone and it's 4-2. And you're like, there we go again, missed opportunity. But they've just got it. And when they come up against teams like Dundee United, who lost 9 goals the last time they beat them, the heads go down and then they score again. So it's going to be hard for any team to catch them, yet alone Rangers. They're just on that good run. And when I guess the World Cup break comes at a good time for everyone else. But they just keep going. That's as bad as it is.
See, just on that as well, what is, anybody know what the handball rule is? Because I've not got a clue.
I don't think the referees do either.
No.
If it hits your hand, it's almost always going to be a penalty. Unless you've got them down by your sides.
See,
even
between
if it comes
that
off somebody, you get a penalty.
it's
the problem with that is that it's, again, the thing we spoke to before. It's somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
So how do you decide what's a handball or not? I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, the handball with Michael Smith at Hearts. It hits his hand. What's the difference with that yesterday? Like, how's it? They're both the same to me. They're either penalties or not. I think if you're given penalties for that, I've said it before. I know the rule is the rule, but if you're kicking a ball towards somebody's hand and they can't get out of it and you're given a penalty, that's very unfair in my opinion. So
the thing is, clever players will start looking onto that as well. Like even go down the byline to cut it back, and it sounds daft, but they're going to start just trying to flick it off their hand because they know it's going to be a penalty. And it's, listen, I'll say I manage a team. I actually don't know the rules, and that's me being totally honest. I don't. I seen a Brian Graham interview as well with his ladies team. He didn't know the rules. I know Big Brian. I says, when you find them out, let me know because I don't know either. And it's just like, it literally just seems anytime the ball hits your hand in a box, it's a penalty. Simple as that. Like that one with Bernard, he's not even looking that direction.
He's not putting his hand up to stop anything. He's, as you say, he's not looking towards the ball. So how's that
and he's jumping? Nah, I don't know how did expect us to jump with our hands glued to our side. Like it's crazy.
A weird one, and it's a weird one, and it's one of those like the referee. Is that the thing with VAR that it's a clear and obvious error? Is VAR getting involved in there because the referee's got it horribly wrong? Not for me. I don't think. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those. It's going to be. I think VAR played its part. I don't know how that's not a red card either. The one earlier on in the game, it's weird. Josh, what did you think of Dundee United? Obviously, going to Parkhead is never easy to get to come within touching distance of getting a point and to get it ripped away from you so late on. It must just be gut punch for Liam Fox and his side.
They'll be gutted. They will be gutted, and it's especially in the situation that they're in. They're bottom of the table, and that point could have been massive for them, especially going into the midweek games. And it'll feel gut wrenching for them, but they really just need to try and focus on the positives of the game. And they did ride Celtic close, and they should have got something for the game. And they're going to need to try and be positive going into their game midweek. But it's a shame for them. I'd be lying if I said I felt sorry for them, but I didn't. But if it was my side, I would have been absolutely gutted. To be honest, I would have been gutted, especially the way the goal came. Like Kyogo getting a free header in the box. Yeah. That's what really would annoy me. You would think at that stage of the game, but let's call a spade a spade. That's why they are where they are. Because they're shitting the goals, the concentration levels aren't there towards the end of games. They've had a few games like that this year where they've lost goals at the end of halves, and you need to concentrate for the full 90 minutes. And I think that's what will be it's not as if it's like an absolute world day. It's a piece of magic. It's a ball into the box, and the smallest man in the box has got a free header and scored. And that's what will be really annoying Liam Fox, to be honest with you.
And as the Celtic train keeps rolling, they're now 7 points clear, and they stayed 7 points clear today. Rangers faltered at McDiarmid Park, a 2-1 defeat by an outstanding St Johnstone performance. Donnie, the Rangers will obviously be the story here, and we'll probably talk a lot more about Rangers and we will about St Johnstone. But before we get into anything, St Johnstone, as we spoke about with Dundee United, it's never easy going up against any of the old firm. What an unbelievable result that is for Callum Davidson, and to be honest, it's one that they absolutely deserved.
Yeah, can't have any complaints about the actual results. And having watched the first 40 minutes until just before the goal, funnily enough, Rangers never looked like they were going to score. They've had 20 corners in that game and absolutely nothing to show from it. It was the same move over and over again, down the left to Kent. Kent cuts it back. Either him or Barisic is crossing it in. St Johnstone have got veteran defenders who are used to playing against teams like us and just kept kicking it away. You get the goal and the strike. Gio never made any changes at half time. They scored again, and that's it, game over. You know, Rangers were never going to get back into it. Even after they scored, they've run out of steam. Their season's over, and it needs a change. And that's just the harsh reality of where they are right now. And Gio's given me some of the best highs in the last 12 months, but he's also given us some of the worst lows. And this result was coming. I was surprised it wasn't against Aberdeen when they went 1-0 up, but we did put a performance together there. But this has been coming, and we've got Hearts next, which is not going to be an easy game, and St Mirren before the break, which will be another tough ground to go to. So I don't know where we go from here. And as you say, that's going to be the story of the weekend.
Josh, you're a manager, and a very good manager. When you're a manager at half time and you're 1-0 down, now, as Donnie touched on a good point there, Rangers had 10 corners in the first half and played quite well, played quite forward. They just weren't getting, it didn't look like scoring. At what point do you go at half time when you're 1-0 down to a team like St Johnstone who you should be beating? And no disrespect to St Johnstone. At what point do you go, we need to change something here? Crossing into the box with Andy Considine and Jason Brown in the box, who are just, as I say, it's an easy game for them. They're just heading the ball away at any cross that comes in. At what point do you go, right, I need to change something here. I need to look at this system I'm playing and completely change it because this isn't working.
See, to be honest with you, I think I said this the last time I was on the podcast. I can't believe the way Rangers play that they don't put Morelos and Cholak in the same team. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they put numerous amount of balls into the box per game, but the two probably the best guys in the team would be attacking a ball in the box. Only one of them plays and one sits on the bench. It makes no sense to me. But when I was watching the game this afternoon, and I was kind of going between that and the Arsenal and Chelsea game, so I had the two games on at the same time.
Yeah.
And I noticed that Rangers were getting loads of corners, but there was no invention for the corners. It was the same corner every time, not even changing it to an in-swinger or an out-swinger. It was a short corner or whatever. If that was me and I was coming in and we're putting that many balls into the box, I'd maybe be speaking about do we need to look at the types of deliveries, because the deliveries all looked the same as well. It was like floated crosses, they were up in the air, and you're at guys like Andy Considine, the centre half, they were just getting up and mopping them up. The crosses that are going to put them in a bit of danger is ones that are whipped in at an awkward height that players like Cholak and Ryan Kent can come in off the line and get across their man, and a bit like Nicky Clark's goal, to be honest with you, that sort of cross. That would be much more dangerous against that defence, and that's the bit that I would have made the change. I would have made that change at half time if that's the way they were chosen to play. That's where I don't think their style matches up with the players to put on the pitch. It doesn't match up. It doesn't make sense. But in that game, you've just got to come out all guns blazing. And I just thought it was a wee bit. I felt as if they were making the game really easy for St Johnstone. It was just like go down one side, come back out, go to the other side, back in, go the other side, and it was just like you're going to need to play a forward pass at some point here. And the moments came for Tavernier having a shot, and then I think Lundstrom's had a long range shot as well, and it's just like a wee bit of invention, a wee bit of give and goes, a wee bit of combination playing around the box. Like, you never really seen that. It just looks as if there's no that many relationships built on the pitch, if that makes sense. Like, Whereas before, when they won the league, they had the relationships all over the pitch, and people worked, and the combinations worked, and it just looks very static. It looks very just a bit crap, to be honest. That is the way it looks. It just looks pretty boring to watch.
I remember a year ago, and I've spoken about this a lot, when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst got the job, and I was keen on Giovanni Van Bronckhorst getting the job. I thought, right, something similar to Gerrard in terms of a young manager who's got a wee bit, maybe a bit more experience, has won a league. I mean, Feyenoord winning a league against Ajax and PSV, that's some achievement. You need to be a good manager to pull that off. And I remember when Gio got the job, I spoke to Johan Brinkel, the Feyenoord, from a Feyenoord podcast, really, really intelligent guy, knows his stuff. And I asked him off here before we went on, I said, what's his style of play? Because I always thought with Gerrard, and I don't think he was a brilliant defensive-minded coach, and I think that's been proven when he went down to England, but he had played with intensity going forward. You knew what Gerrard was going to do. And my first thing I asked him was, I said, what's his attacking style of play? And he said, it's a horseshoe. It's play along a line. If a difficult pass isn't on, you play a safe pass. It's not the same as Gerrard. And I thought, right, okay, that's totally different. Now, if you remember last season, Rangers went on a really good run after Gio came in from then until the winter break. I think they won every game. I don't think they lost a game. I think they only lost one goal as well. And then after that, Rangers began to struggle, went to Parkhead, got absolutely demolished. And I've said that repeatedly, they've got demolished again. And you see now, when Gio's been able to implement his system, there's no urgency. There's nothing there. If there's a safe pass on, they play it. Ryan Kent, Josh, if you were Ryan Kent's manager, what are you seeing in him to play him religiously? Because he's so far off where he needs to be. Now, I've got my own problems about letting a £7 million English player. That should be enough in itself to warrant a transfer fee, to let him either run his contract down or not renew it. Now, I wouldn't give Ryan Kent a new contract based on his performances this season, but I certainly wouldn't let him leave for nothing. And that's the predicament, the recruitment. And recruitment is something I have spoke about religiously. I'm not going to do it tonight because I don't want to bore everybody, but it's a massive, massive area of concern. But, Donnie, tonight, we are not talking about recruitment because that Rangers team are more than capable of going to St Johnstone and getting a result. I don't care how many injuries you have. That Rangers team on paper is better than St Johnstone and should be going there with intensity. At 2-0 down, as you pointed out, at 2-0 down, they did not look anything like a team that were facing a 7-point deficit in the league in the first week in November. Now, I know the World Cup's coming up, and I know it was just about getting to the World Cup and not making that worse. It is worse. And where do you go from here?
Good question. No idea. I mean, it was the same Livingston just a couple of weeks ago. Now it was exactly the same game. They scored, made it difficult for us, and luckily we got the equaliser at the death. But I just think his time's up, and we've got 2 more games to go. So this time next week it'll be finished. They need to clear out. I really don't know what the answer is, because all the good managers have got jobs. In the World Cup, you might see international managers giving up roles and going into squads. I really don't know. It's just come at such the worst time. I would have liked him to see him do well. He started off well, as I say. The European run that we had was phenomenal, but the warning signs were there against Celtic. We folded to them far too easily. Twice last season, already this season. European run was a disaster. People laughing at us across the country, and this just tops it all. So to me, he's got nowhere to go. If he's not gone by this time next week, then that's an even bigger warning sign. But they need to clear out, and Kent's not the only one who's going to run out of contract. You've got Morelos there. Okay, he's not getting a game, but when he is getting a game, is he doing enough? I don't think he is. And it's an aging squad. I mean, a lot of that squad is Gerrard's squad from when he first came to us.
Yeah.
We're going to have people retiring at the end of the season. You've got like Helander, who's never going to come back from injury. Roof, who's never going to come back from injury. we've got about 10 players there that are no use to us, and we're going to need to bring in 10, all while Celtic strengthen and push on from the platform that they've got. So, we turned a corner when we won 55, and that should have been the step to go and push on, but it hasn't worked out. And as I say, the clock has struck, and for me, it's just time up for Gio.
Is
Josh,
it a case though? Is it a style thing? Like, so you're talking about Ryan Kent there, but is it a case of Ryan Kent just doesn't? It seems as if the only sort of attacking player that's actually done well is Cholak.
Yeah.
But is it a case does his system suit these players? Like, you could say Kent's doing enough, but we don't know the information he's gave, because you've just said that guy's saying if there's a difficult pass on or whatever, it's back out safe, go to the other side again. Is that taking away that creativity for Kent and the wingers to say, listen, go and get at him if you're in a 1v1 situation?
That's my point. But that's my point about recruitment, Josh. If Giovanni Van Bronckhorst thinks that Ryan Kent maybe doesn't fit that system, you need to go and get someone else other than Ryan Kent. You can't just stick with those. If you want to completely change that system, if Steven Gerrard's system was very, very simple. 4-3-3, inside forwards instead of wingers. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is very winger based, right?
Yep.
I think Ryan Kent is far better when he cuts in. Ryan Kent and Yanis Hadji for me were the two best at being in that kind of wide number 10 role. Not a winger as such, but a kind of number 10 who is in there, can go to the byline if you need him to, but it's far better cutting in, getting the ball forward, getting the ball through the middle. That's obviously changed, but you're saying there about the system, and I agree that's a completely different system. But Josh, you know that. You know as well as me. You need players that fit your system. If you want to implement a system, you need to buy players that you know will fit the system. You don't just go to Ross, give us a list. Give us a list of 5 players who have been on your list for 2 or 3 years, who you've been trying to get constantly, who fit that old system. Because that's what it looks to me. There is no manager and director of football sitting down and going, right, okay, this is who we need for this position. Rangers haven't had a out-and-out right winger since Daniel Koundés. Have they replaced that position? The summer was the place to rebuild your squad. You've sold Calvin Bassey for 20 million. You've sold Nathan Patterson. I know we keep talking down the money they've earned for the Champions League, but they've certainly earned money from the Champions League. You need to reinvest in a squad. Rangers were in a great position 18 months ago because Celtic were in disarray and Rangers had won the league. Rangers should have used that, as Donnie said, as a stepping stone to going to the next level. That requires more money. The Rangers board have put a lot of money in. I get that. But you need to build on that. You don't just win the league and go, right, that's us done with target. We'll go back to being mediocre and let Celtic rebuild their squad and become better than us. Because that's what's happened.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Now, Antonio
Cholak. A lot it's to do as well, though, and it's his mannerism. Like, it's that attitude and everything. Like, he just doesn't inspire you. He's not very inspiring to you.
There's another thing as well. Like he's saying 2 weeks ago when they played that, last week when they played Ajax are far better than us and should be beating us. Right, okay. But you've got a bigger budget than St Johnstone, so realistically you should be going out and stuffing St Johnstone.
Aye.
So what
imagine being a fan or a player in the changing room, like you've read that, you've saw that interview, like, oh, we can't compete here because we've not got the bank balance, we can't do this, we can't do that. Like,
but you've got to a Europa League final beating 2 of the biggest budgets in Germany.
Aye, so let's just pack up and go up the road. That's it. He'd be better off telling you, but it's that side of it. Like, that's the stuff that Gerrard would never commit. I know Gerrard's got his flaws, but he would never come out in a press conference and be that defeatist and that downbeat and negative about things. Like, you still got to be positive. And I just think, like, if he's saying that to the media, because normally whatever you say to the media or what you're saying to the press is you're trying to sugarcoat it a wee bit, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I dread to think how honest he's been in the changing room as well. I'd love to see what he's saying in there, if that's what he's saying to the newspapers and stuff. I'd love to
I've said before, and I think about this a lot. I can imagine Steven Gerrard, and I'm not saying here like, oh, the solution is go and get Steven Gerrard back. Now he's available. That would be a disaster, because that shows that would really my worst fear about this Rangers board, that they're quite happy just to go back to when everything was all right. Gerrard's reputation has been damaged. do not go near Steven Gerrard. That is my warning to this Rangers board. And I know they won't listen to this, and I know they don't care about somebody like me, but that would highlight everything that is wrong with how I feel recruitment is. Because somebody's available who they've liked before and who they've had before, you go and get them back. Alan McGregor, I love Alan McGregor, one of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen in Scottish football. But why is he going off to a standing ovation in a Scottish Cup final, and then 5 days later signs a new 1-year deal? What's that about? Is that basically you? Is that basically Ross Wilson going, right, I've looked about a couple of days for a goalkeeper, they're too dear. Alan, can you stay for another season and we'll kick this can down the road until next summer? Where does that leave Rangers now? Because then you've got Giovanni Van Bronckhorst now. I think he's done. I think he will never recover from this. And it's not because I want him out the door. I don't believe that the manager carries the can for everything. I think the manager, unfortunately, sometimes does. I don't believe he should. But the problem you've got now is that if Rangers were to limp through the next 2 games, right? Rangers beat Hearts and beat St Mirren and then go on a month break, and then the game after they come back, go to Pittodrie and get beat. It just festers again. It's that way. You don't escape that. You don't escape going to St Johnstone and losing 2-1 when you're under so much pressure. Sadly, you don't, and it's not. I don't think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will survive this. I really don't.
When do you think it'll happen? Do you think it'll happen before the World Cup break, or do you
Well,
think
it's
he'll
that
get a
thing.
chance?
It's that thing. Is it the best option to get him out the door get just 2 games in and then go a month with a new system? You're putting a new guy under a lot of pressure of going in his first 4 games to Aberdeen, Hibs, and then at home to Celtic. That's the problem. You're either in this position of you give him to the World Cup, you give him until the Celtic game, Celtic beat them, and that's it over, and that's it, and then where do you go from there? You're probably 10 points clear, or 10 points behind, or even more. And what's the point?
And who is there realistically that would come in?
That's the problem.
Go for,
as Donnie says, the manager's there. Who do you go and get? And who wants to go there and go, right, you've got a squad here that you're going to need to drastically rebuild in the summer, but we're not going to really give you we're not going to let you pick your players. We're going to give you a list that you're just okay, because that is what I feel is going on. Is Giovanni Van Bronckhorst going? I really like Rabbi Matondo. No disrespect to Rabbi Matondo. I don't think he's been given enough of a chance, but I don't imagine the manager's going, right, Rabbi Matondo's the guy we really need. Do you know what I mean? They've brought in an assistant manager for Ajax. Now, I'm not saying you go and spend 15-20 million and get every good player from Holland, but you certainly look at the market, you know. Ange Postecoglou's looked at a Japan. Exactly. Ange Postecoglou's about to sign somebody else for Japan, a market he knows, Donnie. Where's that at Ibrox? Where's Giovanni Van Bronckhorst going? Here's another point. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst apparently wanted a midfielder from France, desperate to sign him. It was out Rangers' price range, so Rangers went and signed Malik Tillman and loaned from Bayern Munich. What?
Yeah, he's a dead man walking. It needs to be done sooner.
I don't think he's been helped though, Donnie. I don't think he's been helped at all.
But if you switched, so we've talked about 2 games tonight so far. If you switch those around, if Celtic go 1-0 down to St Johnstone, you fancy them to win the game. If they're 2-0 down, you'd expect them to get at least a draw. If Rangers were even 1-1 against Dundee United, you probably wouldn't have fancied them to win. And at 2-1 with 87 minutes gone, you certainly would not expect them to win. And that's the difference. Celtic have got a big enough tank and desire to push on in these games. Rangers, they've run out of options. Talking about the system probably is good, but Scottish football isn't the grounds where it's going to work.
Absolutely.
Too many teams have got enough men behind the ball that they can see it coming. You saw it today. Every time Kent got the ball, there's 2 men went out to him and closed them down. And we all know, watching the game, what Kent's going to do. You're going to cut inside, whip it in. So if you put 2 men on him, you can't do that. And then it goes back to Barisic, and then it goes across to the other side. And it was just that all day long. And as I say, I think we could have played all day and never got another goal. And there's been too much of that this season. We've been lucky in games, to say the Aberdeen game, but nah, I'm at a loss, and everyone else is at a loss. And midweek against Hearts, it's at home. The crowd's going to be toxic. If Hearts score first or even go on to win, that'll be it. They've gone too far now for it to become acceptable. And he's a nice guy, and he's done a lot in football, and he was the right appointment at the right time, but he's just the wrong appointment for the Scottish game.
And that's the thing. That's where I tend to agree. I think in a one-off cup tie, I think he's the right guy, because I think tactically in that regard, I think he knows what he's doing. I think if you ask, if Celtic were to go on, we spoke about this a lot, if Celtic were to go on a blip before the World Cup, you couldn't trust Rangers to pick up from it, and that's the big difference. And we could go on about this all night, and I think it's inevitable, Josh. I just think it's.
See another thing. Am I right in thinking that Rangers fans in general were quite optimistic about the start of the season, obviously, and then when it started, and then was it when the injuries started to happen to key players?
Yeah.
That's when it started to. Because you were doing well. If I might be, my memory's terrible. I can't remember my game yesterday. Never mind the day. But
do you want to remember your game yesterday?
No, mate. Honestly, I don't actually want to. I'm waiting on that getting sent to me to rewatch it again. I'm going to sit with a cup of vodka, I think, to rewatch that. But anyway, but I kind of thought you were a bit optimistic, and it was all about what Gio was bringing to the table. And obviously, rightly so. He's just off the back of a European Cup final, but. It
the
seems
PSV
as if,
game.
I think the injuries have killed
them.
When
we beat PSV and got into the Champions League, you were like, brilliant. We've got a piece of the money now as well.
There was a bit of buzz, wasn't there?
And then the transfer window shut, and that was probably the first warning sign. We didn't sign anything to strengthen in midfield. We were happy at the back, signing a guy for Hearts who we know has got injury problems, and lo and behold, he plays one game, gets injured, and
meanwhile Balogun's walking a bit Glasgow.
Yeah.
But there's another thing as well. Like we could see that any fan of Scottish football could see that squad had peaked when they won. I mean, last season was a perfect example. Rangers should have been leaps and bounds clear of Celtic. Ange's team should have took 2 or 3 years to build. Now, would they have got that if Rangers had kicked on? I don't know, but. He hasn't had to. He's rebuilt the squad in 18 months, and they're so far clear of Rangers. Not in a one-off game. I think it would be very even. But what I'm trying to say is that Celtic have got so much more firepower in terms of Celtic. Yesterday, for example, Haksabanovic. He's not first choice. He's a really, really good player to bring on. Giacomakis, how many times has he come on and done something? How many times has he started and done something? Rangers don't have that. It's Ryan Kent, who's horrendously out of form, and look now at the stage where I think he's playing rubbish on purpose because he doesn't want to be there. He's just happy to let his contract run down. Glenn Kamara, all the talk was he was going in the summer. Rangers couldn't get the bid they wanted. They were trying to sign somebody for Standard Liège. Again, the price was too dear. They went off him. What I'm trying to say is that squad had peaked last season, and I'm now at the stage where I think and I hope and pray that I'm wrong, and this Rangers team only won that league because of 2 reasons. Celtic were in disarray and there was no crowd. Because you tell me, is that Rangers mentality get any better since 2 seasons ago?
You'll not get any disagreements from me, lads.
But that, you see what I'm saying though? Like, I'm not. No,
it's true what you're saying. Like, it definitely is, but I don't know. There seems to just be a catalogue errors at Rangers now, and it just doesn't seem to get any better. It reminds me similar to when we went and brought Lennon in, and even like what I'm hearing now, people are saying for Duncan Ferguson to come in. I can remember people saying that when we got Lennon in, and people were saying like, "Oh, he'll not take any crap," and these boys will work hard. Now that was a lot of rubbish. Like, look how bad we went. Before you know it, we've got people throwing things at the outside the stadium, wanting them out. Like,
and things can turn. But the problem with that was that team had reached the end of its cycle. That team had won. Do you know what I mean? That team had won 9 trophies, 10 in a row. I think it just got to a stage where that Celtic team, it was just
became stale.
Aye, it just
But that's what
it
these
just
teams
had a
like
peak,
Ajax.
and this Rangers team was the same. This Rangers team have had a peak. This Rangers team, I think we're seeing it a bit with Liverpool as well. This Liverpool team
yeah.
aren't now going to go to that next level because they've hit the peak. And
This is why you've got your director of footballs, though. They're there to bring in the next Ryan Kent or the next Morelos, and that is why they're there. Because at Rangers and Celtic and Ajax do it really well. Ajax have basically got a brand new team and look how well they're doing.
But they do that every year because they sell their best players. Exactly.
But they anticipate that they sell players. Whereas there's this thing at Celtic and Rangers where we shouldn't be selling this one and we shouldn't be doing this and we shouldn't be doing that. Whether we like it or not, they're both selling clubs and players come here as a stepping stone. The sooner we realise that, and it was interesting actually, and I was actually quite pleased about it. No all Celtic fans were, but Ange touched on it, where we need to anticipate selling our best players. And a lot of fans were up in my ear about that, or why we're talking about selling our best players, because you're blind and you're oblivious if you're not talking about that, because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen at a point where you're going to be left and you've not recruited properly and you've not rebuilded properly. And whose fault's that? That's it. Eventually goes to the manager, so he needs to plan for it. He needs to plan for losing Kyogo or Hatati or whatever. You need to plan for this sort of stuff.
But that's good recruitment. That's Celtic signed Jota for $6.5 million. Do you think they're going to let him go for nothing?
Exactly. But that's management, isn't it? That is management. But again, is it the recruitment side? I don't know, like the Ross Wilson side. And again, it's mad in football, isn't it? Because there was so many. I remember the praise Ross Wilson was getting when he brought in Aaron Ramsey. Can you remember that? And it's just crazy in football how it can just turn.
I put out an article saying 2 years ago Ross Wilson was the best hire since Walter Smith, and I did believe that. I did believe he came in and brought something different. He brought in, you could see a vision for the future, but also said in that article something, when Gerrard does eventually leave, you need to get that transition right, and that meant rebuilding the squad, because you cannot carry a squad. And I think Celtic suffered from this as well under Rodgers. Celtic played a terrific style of football under Brendan Rodgers. When Neil Lennon came in, they were being asked to do different things, and you can't ask 11 players to do the exact same thing in a different way. You need. But you also can't.
You also can't ask. You also can't ask Neil Lennon to replace a Brendan Rodgers.
That's the thing. But you can't ask players as well to completely change the way they play to suit that style.
That's it. That's exactly it. You can't. It's a continuous.
It's 8 degrees Celsius.
Alexa, stop. I don't know why she's decided to just tell us about the weather.
That's the clip for the episode, because there's dark clouds gathering over Ibrox, in my opinion, and I think they will become. I think they'll flood on Wednesday night if Rangers don't get anything, because, as Donnie rightly says, if Rangers don't make a decision, and I'm never one for getting managers to sack, I always think the players should carry a lot more of the can, because they're the ones doing the work. The manager can only put out the team. The players deserve a lot more of the flack here, but these are players who we know have mentality problems in this league.
Mm-hmm.
If Rangers go out on Wednesday night and it's mediocre, it's average, it's rubbish, do you think the fans will accept that? Do you think the fans will not be? I remember going to Ibrox and fans were outside for Paul Le Guen after a St Johnstone defeat, and it was toxic, absolutely toxic. And I hope that never happens again, but it's a weird country we live in, and I
think if something does go wrong midweek, I think you two might need a therapy session for something.
This is my therapy session, but we'll get into a lot of that. We'll quickly touch on other games, because we could speak about Rangers all day at the moment, because it's just not good at all. But quickly, we'll touch on the other 4 games. Josh, Aberdeen 4, Hibs 1 on Friday night. Aberdeen off the heels of a bad result at Ibrox last Saturday, playing against a Hibs team and very similar. Two teams that will play some good football, and Aberdeen won on the day. Terrific result for Aberdeen. And again, when Aberdeen are on it, they can score goals for fun.
Aye. Quite impressed with Aberdeen, to be honest with you. They don't seem a team so much bothered about possession. It's just more about the amount of chances they create, and they create a lot of good chances as well. They create a lot of good chances without having a lot of the ball, and I think they attack the ball well in the box, and I was pretty impressed when they play with a good intensity as well. Aberdeen, they get men and they flood the box as well. I'm quite impressed with them, to be honest with you. And I think they'll keep getting better. I think we also seen the good as well, a VAR for the Hibs goal. Finally, a wee bit of good. Because I did actually think he was offside at first glance as well, and then obviously he wasn't. But no, I think Jim Goodwin's starting to make them click a wee bit, and I think they'll keep getting better. You might find the break actually might come at the bad time for them, to be honest with you. That break, that'll be that break might not do teams the world of good as well, so you don't know.
Donnie, from a Hibs perspective, it might be a bit of a weird game. 17 shots, 6 on target, but you lose 4-1, dominated the ball. But Aberdeen, it was a very open counter, and Aberdeen took their chances.
No, absolutely. I think not having Boyle is a big miss for Hibs. He makes them click. They're actually a pretty bad run, having been good for the first half of the season. But Aberdeen, I mean, we could talk about the penalty if you like. I don't think it was a penalty. And then how long it took, and then about 2 minutes of play passed, and then they took it back to retake the penalty. That was a bit shambolic. But when Aberdeen get their tails in front, they are good. And against teams that are around them, they're good. They're just off the pace when it comes to Rangers and Celtic, and unfortunately that's just how it is. They've got Dundee United next week. They've got Livingston, then Dundee United. They'll want to make amends for that defeat that United put on them just the other week. And if they can do that, if they can win these next 2 games, they should then be 3rd place, and that's where they would want to stay because they had a horrific season last season. They're still poor at the back. Not really sure what the system is there, but as you say, when they go forward with Miovski and the boy Duke, it is a good partnership, albeit I still don't think it was a penalty.
We'll move into our game on Friday night. It was quite an entertaining Friday night as well. I think that's something that the Premiership should do every weekend, because I quite enjoyed kind of following this on Friday. Kilmarnock 2, Livingston 3. Livingston, we know what they do. They're gritty, they're determined. That's something that they're famous for doing. That's how they get the 3 points. But Josh, it's one of those games where it could have went anywhere, and I think Derek McInnes will be absolutely baffled at how he hasn't got something out of that game.
It's the goals that Kelly concede as well. It's the goals. Like, but do you know? I've got a bit of a soft spot for Livy, to be honest with you, because I don't. People always talk about they just put so many men behind the ball and they do this and they do that, but their actual first goal comes from pressing high in that game and robbing them in their build-up, and then they go ahead and they score, and then I think their winner as well, which led to the own goal. Again, pressing high, Bruce Anderson away pressing high, and then the boys close in and top it. Again, puts the ball across, and it's that. But I don't know. See, Livy, I like them. I love Martindale as well. I can't believe Martindale doesn't get touted about for more jobs and stuff as well. And you talk about recruitment at Rangers. The job that Livingston do is unbelievable. With no money, I wouldn't imagine they've got a big recruitment part of their club as well. But how they just keep churning out all these players, and again they bring players in to fit the style, to do what they're doing, and they're good at it, and they're brilliant at it, and they're brilliant at recruiting for it. And I don't know. I just don't think they get the praise they deserve, and the fact that they can go and they go away there and they've just always got that grit. They stay in games and they'll either get a draw or a win. That you never feel as if they're fully out the game. But don't get me wrong, if you're McInnes, you're raging, but you're more raging about the goals you're conceding rather than the chances you've not took, to be honest with you. Because if you don't defend, it's the same as my team in yesterday. If you can't defend, you're not going to win games. So you can't even moan about the chances you're passing up.
Yeah.
And that's a bit that will be really sticking in his throat, to be honest with you.
Donnie, Livingston were the other one. Do you kind of echo Josh's thoughts that it was it
was a cracking game? But yeah, I think Livingston did deserve it, just for the fact that when it got to 2-2, they kept pushing and they kept trying to get that winner. I think one of the things you get with the Livingston team is they play as a team. You can see what each player, their role is. They've always been solid at the back, hard to break down, Newbley up front. And now that he's got Anderson there, having been injured for the start of the season, that's probably a good foil for him. Be able to knock it down, lay it off. So they'll do a lot of teams, Livingston, over the course of the season. But Kilmarnock, to be ahead and then lose the game is disappointing. And that's been probably the story of their season, is they've got themselves into good positions and just maybe not been able to see themselves over the line. I think they lack up front. I mean, okay, Lafferty's not the saviour, but he knows what to do in this league, and he probably would be a difference for a team like that. But they just seem to struggle. So to score 2 goals and get ahead at half time just to see it go is disappointing. But yeah, Livingston, they're only a couple of points off third, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
One win would see them there. Well, they play Aberdeen next. They win that, they'll be above them. So they're definitely a team, top 6 as well within their reach, and that's what they should be aiming for season in, season out. Kilmarnock, they've got a long stretch of games without having to play Rangers or Celtic. I think come after Christmas, they do play both those teams, so they're going to need to start getting points on board pretty quickly. So they will be disappointed after I say having a lead in that one. But no, it was a good game. Good game.
Could be a massive game for Kilmarnock on Saturday, Tuesday night as well. We'll touch on that later on. Ross County, a huge 3-2 victory for them at home at St Mirren. Josh, my thing with Ross County, as I've always said this season, they lack goals, but they're a pretty decent side. They just don't take their chances, and they fought back really well and took their chances to pick up a big win on Saturday at home at St Mirren.
I think it was a full weekend where the full SPFL just couldn't defend, to be honest with you. There seems to be goals all over the camp.
Yeah.
I watched the highlights of that game, and I just couldn't believe some of the goals that were going in, like just balls coming out of the box and not even contested, and it was unbelievable. But I think, is it White they've got up front for them?
Yeah.
Ross County, just good player, he does what he does, but he just doesn't score enough goals for them. And they've got good wide players as well. I really like the boy Edwards.
I like the boy Edwards as well.
Really good, direct, and I thought he was really, really good. And I was really impressed with him last year. Obviously, again, I know they lost a couple of players, but was it Charles Cook? I think he went the
Charles Cook and Humble,
So it's hard for these teams. I think we underestimate how hard it is for these teams to replace the goal scorers at that level as well. And as you touched on, they ultimately just they've kind of kept the core group, but the goal scorers seem to have left. And hopefully that's maybe a big confidence booster for them, going and scoring 3 at home. And they created enough chances to score a couple more. So they should take confidence for that. But it's a good home victory, and it was needed because it's very, very tight down at that end of the table, very tight. And obviously what happened to Dundee United, that'll make that win even bigger for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Donnie, would you go along with that big win for Ross County? But from a St Mirren perspective, 5 defeats for 6 away games. They're in a really good position in the league, but if they don't pick up that away form, they could find themselves struggling.
It was definitely a surprise result because St Mirren have probably been the surprise team in this early part of the season. They started off really well. They defeated Celtic, and they were in the top 6. But Ross County, as I say, they've lacked goals and they just seem to get it all at once at the weekend. Whether they can push on now, we've got Hibs and then Celtic. St Mirren have got St Johnstone and Rangers, so not great fixtures for either team, but certainly a good win. And when it's that close at the bottom, these are the games that make the difference. You see your opponents losing and you've got a good performance yourself. They should be happy with that. But no, I enjoyed that game. It was good.
And the final game of the weekend was at Tynecastle. A very dramatic finish, Donnie, as Hearts beat Motherwell 3-2. Lawrence Shanklin was a late penalty, but they had to do it with 10 men. It was a very tight game, and I wonder, was the Craig Gordon thing, did that overshadow Hearts' victory?
Yeah, I mean, Hearts, they'll probably be glad that their European adventure is over. It's took its toll and it showed in the results. But they've, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've had a clean sheet all season. So when you've got that kind of defensive record, you do need to be scoring goals. And luckily for them, Shanklin has been on form pretty much since game 1. I think we'd all be surprised to see Halliday grabbing a couple. But Motherwell pulled it back. And yes, when Gordon's been booked and then he gives away a penalty, surely the referee's got to think about that one. But they got the win. It's moved them up in the league, and they'll want to, go to Rangers on Wednesday and really stamp on their necks, as it were, because they're starting to hit a bit of form, albeit they're poor at the back.
Josh, the thing with the Craig Gordon situation is that he does touch the ball, so I understand why he doesn't get a second yellow card, but he does take Louis Mill down.
See, to be fair, we had one yesterday, same situation, exact same, similar, to be honest. And I think it's that whole double jeopardy rule, isn't it, where you can't do it. And I'll be honest, yesterday again, I think everybody's just so confused with the rules. Nobody knows what's happening, to be honest with you. But and even the similar situation happened to us yesterday, and I was telling my sub goalie to go and get warmed up, basically. So then I realised, no wait, you can sit back down because he doesn't get sent off. So it was like, it's a difficult one. But listen, that's massive for Hearts because Motherwell have been really, really good. I know Brian Kerr has went in there with Hammy as well. So the boys have done brilliant since they've been in. And I know they're starting to stutter a wee bit now, but they've done really, really well. And that's a massive home win. Shanklin's obviously turned out to be a phenomenal signing for them as well. I think he was under a wee bit of pressure. I think a lot of people said they couldn't do it in the Premiership as well when he was coming in. A lot of Hearts fans are saying that, but he's proven that he can.
Imagine he's a fantasy footballer's dream, Donnie.
He is. It's actually a position that's quite hotly contested because you've got a lot of good goal scorers in the game right now. You've got Cholak, Miovski, two at Celtic. So he is somebody that you eye up as a penalty taker. Being a good asset. Then you think, right, we've got Rangers in midweek. Good chance he can score against them. So yeah, from a fantasy football point of view, he's certainly hot property at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll move on to the Championship. 5 games to talk about. On Friday night, Cove beat Queen's Park 2-0. And then on Saturday, Ayr 1, Morton 1, Inverness 1, Arbroath 1, Partick 2, Dundee 3, Raith 3, Hamilton 1. I'll just go through the table quite quickly. It's still very tight. Ayr though, just the way the results have went, still 3 points clear after the draw at Morton, but Raith and Dundee were probably the big winners of the weekend. Donnie, what result caught your eye in the Championship?
Well, I'm from Cove myself, so that's my local team. Caught a bit of the game on TV, albeit it's about 5 minutes from my house. So, as I said, before we started recording, they've probably found their level. They've waltzed through the lower leagues quite easily, but this is probably a step too far. So it'll be a good experience for them. At the moment, it looks like they could stay in the league. It'll be a tough winter to come for them, but it's certainly a good win on the TV. It's certainly good for the profile of the club. So hopefully they can stay up and just build on that. But that is a league. You look at it, 7th place, Partick Thistle, just 5 points off the top.
Yeah.
Any one of those could find themselves in the top flight next season.
Yeah,
I take it was a good turnout for the Friday night games. Are a big kit, eh? I like them.
Seeing the West and things like that, they're an absolute.
They're brilliant.
Yeah, they're a real good thing. That's what I'm saying. Like even like a Friday night where you've got 2 Premiership games, they still got a good crowd. I think there was. I don't know the exact crowd, but I don't imagine it would have been empty. I think there would have been a good crowd at that game.
No, it's a good crowd. They're well supported, home and away. They've got a good support, and as I say, they've won back-to-back promotions. They've put in extra stands, so it obviously shows that they're looking to remain in that league and do as best as they can. So no, it was good to see it on TV and good for them to get the win. But I think they will struggle. But if they can stay up, that would be their primary objective.
Yeah, I think they will stay up.
I think they will as well.
I think they've got a good squad.
Yeah, and I think as well, look, you've got guys like Mitchell Megginson that can score goals, and I think they'll be fine. I think that's a big result as well. Josh, we'll go to you for League One. We'll just go through the results. Clyde 0, Airdrie 1, Falkirk 0, Dunfermline 1. I was told the biggest attendance for a third-tier game outside of Rangers for, I think, ever. FC Edinburgh 0, Queen of the South 3, Kelty 1, Alloa 1, and Montrose 3, Peterhead 0. What catches your eye in that division?
Queen of the South against Edinburgh caught mine. So I've got a few boys obviously on loan for Queen of the South. And they've been pretty inconsistent, but obviously Edinburgh are at the top end of the table, and I feel as if Queen of the South have really clawed themselves back into contention for a playoff spot with that victory. I felt sorry for my old club Clyde as well, to be honest. They're going through a real time at the now. Spoke to Donnie when he's left as well, and Moody stayed there, and the guys were just saying that every bit of bad luck just seems to be no going for them. And I know they obviously saved a penalty, and then it lands straight at LJ, who used to play for Clyde, and he scored. And so they're going through a bit of a tough time at the now. But for me, Queen of the South, and I think that league's wide open, and I feel as I think Dunfermline will run away with that league, to be honest with you. I think eventually they'll win it quite comfortably, but I think the playoff spots will be tight, and I can see Queen of the South dragging themselves back into that, because I know Willie, and he'll get that right eventually. And obviously I've got a couple of boys on loan for Queens, and there's a few talented boys coming through their ranks as well, who can't get into the team just now. So it shows you how strong they are. Yeah, but I'd hope Clyde pick up as well. I wouldn't like to see them go down, because they worked hard to get up the league.
We'll move into League Two. Just Albion Rovers 1, Stirling 1, Bonnyrigg 2, Elgin 3, Dumbarton 2, Stranraer 0, Forfar 1, Annan 4, Stenhousemuir 2, East Fife 2. Donnie, what caught your eye in League Two?
I've always got a soft spot for Annan. It's where we've just come from on the holiday, so I always like to see them do well. They took Aberdeen to extra time in the cup, but they're struggling, unfortunately. But it looks like a two-horse race as it stands at the moment. Dumbarton, Stirling, Albion switching places at the weekend, so it looks quite exciting at the top. Both teams starting to hit form at the right time.
It's a fascinating weekend in all the SPFL. As I say, I think not a lot's changed in terms of the league positions, but it's been an exciting weekend. We have some midweek action to look at. We'll just go through quickly. We'll ask for score predictions before we wrap up the show. Tuesday night, Hibs versus Ross County. I think Ross County could get something here. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw. Josh, who we got?
I'll say 1-1 as well, to be honest with you. That'll probably get fit by Stoke, maybe that game. Who knows? I'm not having Lee Johnson, by the way. I don't know about you, but I'm not having that. I'm not having Lee Johnson.
I think he's got a system he wants to implement, but I think, is it going to be consistent? Are you going to see Hibs being on a consistent run? Because I don't think they've been when they're similar to Aberdeen. When they're on it, they're brilliant. When they're off it, they're not good at all. And they're
quite similar to the whole Maloney scenario, wasn't it? Where Maloney had a system, they didn't really let him in, but some of the stuff Johnson comes out with in interviews is a bit baffling and all. But I don't know. I just think maybe I'm not as wacky on these interviews. Maybe I need to start putting myself out there a wee bit more. Just start saying what I feel.
I think you should. Donnie, Hibs, Ross County.
I fancy Hibs for the win. As I say, they're a different team without Martin Boyle. But I fancy them maybe 2-1.
2-1 Hibs. Livingston, Aberdeen. Josh, I think this could be a Livingston win. I think Aberdeen can be very inconsistent. I think Livy 2-0.
I'll say Livy 1-0. I think they'll sneak a wee 1-0 there.
Donnie, what we got?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. It's not going to be a good place to travel midweek. Plastic pitch, tough defence. I think Livingston could edge this, maybe 1-0.
A massive game at the bottom of the table on Wednesday. Dundee United versus Kilmarnock. I think Kilmarnock they need to stop leaking goals, and they need to start scoring them. And I think if it's not for Danny Armstrong, I think they'd be bottom of the league. But I think Dundee United are also due a result. I think Dundee United 2-1. Josh?
That could be 3 each, to be honest with you, the way they defend, to be honest with you.
Yes, it could be. There could be a lot of goals in that.
If the two of them defend the way they have been, that could honestly be like a high scoring draw, in my opinion. But it should be a decent game. But now that we have said that, it'll probably be 0-0.
I think there's a 0-0. I think there's a 0-0 later on, and I'm going to touch on it later. There's always a 0-0 in these games, but
there'll be no shots in that game. There'll be no shots on that.
We didn't get it this weekend. Donnie, Dundee United, Kilmarnock. Massive game for two teams. Who we got?
I see it back Dundee United more than I should. They've got a fantastic squad, but for some reason or another, they just don't do it. I'd like to say they would win this game. I wouldn't put my house on it. I think it could be a draw. I think it would be a goal-scoring draw, maybe 2-2.
Motherwell play Celtic. Josh, can Celtic keep their run going?
Absolutely. 3-0 Celtic. Easy peasy.
Big call. I think Celtic will win comfortably. I think I'm even going to go. I'm going to go 4-0. I think Celtic will just win comfortably. Donnie, what we got?
It'll be an absolute demolition. I'd even go further than that and say 5. Celtic could probably make half a dozen changes and still steamroller them. So it'll be a convincing win.
The game that I think could be 0-0 could be this one, Rangers versus Hearts. I think that it all depends on what happens, and I think we're in for a big 24, 48 hours before this game. I don't know if there will be a change, but I think if there will be one, I think it will be made before this game. But I don't think I don't think this will be much of a contest. I think this will be a 0-0. I think this is a 0-0 for the week, Josh. I think both teams are really, really struggling. I think Hearts are obviously more capable of getting a result. They won't be fearing going to Rangers because, as I say, why would you fear just going to play against a team who are quite predictable? But I do think it'll be a 0-0, though. I think it'll be a very stuffy affair at Ibrox.
Will Gio be in the dugout? What we're saying?
I think that all depends, and then I think he will. I think he will.
I think he will.
I think he will be.
I don't think
think
there's
he will.
enough time. They would have done it straight after the game, an hour or so after the game if they were going to do anything. The fact that nothing's happened, they are probably just going to wait till this time next week, see where they're at. I think there will be goals. I've said already, Hearts haven't kept a clean sheet, so I think if Hearts score first, we'll watch out. I would like to think Rangers win this one. I'm hoping Rangers win this one. If it's 1-0, that'll do me. But yeah, it's not the team you really want to face at this moment in time.
I just think it's one of those midweek feelings of the crowd won't be up for it. The crowd will be.
Oh yeah, the crowd will
toxic.
be on the
and
edge.
I think it will show up. I think it will show off in the players as well, because I don't think this Rangers team have history of not playing well when the pressure is on them. And I think this is going to be something similar.
I think he makes changes as well. I think he brings on Morella. I think he will make changes just to try and save himself.
Morella and Joe that together, I think he's.
And that could be damaging.
Pissing into the wind. And sorry for swearing, but how on earth he doesn't after that today go, right, I need to really change I really need to change this. I need to be far more pragmatic. I need to play go the way he started he played Kamara as a 6 and played Arfield and Aribo in his first few weeks in charge. That worked. Why he changed that, I don't know.
It could be a toxic night. That it could be very toxic.
It could be horrendous.
I've been there at Celtic Park as well, and obviously, you know what the Old Firm fans are like. Like, they're very impatient. Even if the first couple of minutes, if Hearts go and get a corner in the first couple of minutes, like you'll hear the talks. It'll be toxic all the way around the stadium, and
it rubs off.
Very
and
important.
Josh, you know that it rubs off in the players, and it's going to be one of those. I just think it's going to be one of those nights. I think.
Especially just now, Scott, because they're the boys will be really low in confidence just now. Like, they've got that tag of being the worst Champions League team in the group stages. Like, that's not. I think what people need to realise as well, the boys, the players, they'll be so low in confidence, and maybe what Gio's asking them to do is maybe just a wee bit. It's a wee bit too difficult for them. Like,
but do you know what would get me as well? And I'm sorry for interrupting, but do you know what would get me and would infuriate me if I was a Rangers fan? See if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was to be shown the door, and Rangers then pick up. That would infuriate me, because
you've seen that happen at Villa, didn't you?
You see it happen everywhere, and you get this new manager bounce to talk about, but it's a lack of professionalism, because it shows you that you weren't playing for that manager. You were trying to get that.
Or is it taking the shackles off the players?
Possibly. But it's also, to me, what it's always looked like to me is that these players are capable of so much more, and they're showing it after the horse is bolted. So
no, I get that. There's two sides to it, I suppose, isn't there? But I don't think it's just as simple as a manager swap, to be honest with you.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
think it's that
the
easy.
problems are far worse, and we were speaking about it off air, Donnie. If Rangers AGM, I think, is the first week in December. If the World Cup, and if the World Cup will obviously be going on, so there'll be no pressure of a game before that. But if this is what it's going to be like getting into this AGM, and the AGM is not what Rangers fans like, they don't hear things they want to hear, it will turn quickly, and it will turn on the board, and it's beginning to turn on the board. And I feel for the board, because I know they've had to put in a lot of money to restabilise the club, because the club was on its bare bones when a lot of those guys went in. but they haven't kicked on. They haven't saw the opportunity to go to that next level. They won the league in 2021 and thought, right, okay, we've done that bit. That's what I think's happened. They've done the hard bit, and we'll just take our foot off the gas and not build for the future.
I don't think anyone anticipated how good Celtic would come under Ange as well.
No, I don't.
So I think if you remember that at the start, like, I'll be honest, I didn't know how that was going to work out. And I remember it was crazy. Like, and if you even remember how we started that year, it was like, I think we started with 3 defeats. Like, but it was, and again, that's why I spoke about Gio's personality. It was Ange's personality that got the Celtic fans drawing in and just that, like, we all knew what he was trying, and I think as fans, like, the fans got a lot of stick, but I think if you know what they're trying to do, like, if you remember it under Gerrard, when Gerrard first came in, obviously he's didn't win the league right away, but you could see the progression. You could see they were coming up, and as Celtic fans, we knew Rangers were closing that gap to us, and I think that's where our frustrations came from, because we weren't capitalising, and now the roles have reversed, and I think that's. With Gio, it's just like there just doesn't seem to be a direction. You just don't know where it's going.
I think that bought Gerrard time. The fact that you could see maybe results weren't they great a lot of the time. There was a lot of times where Rangers would struggle. Rangers would lose at home to Hamilton. They would lose away to Ross County and things like that. But you could see he was building something. That's where I'm at with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst right now. Is that
you can't see it. You don't know what's happening.
I can't see anything other than the inevitable, and it's that thing of the slow death, and it's not nice to say it like that, but you can see where this is going. I speak about it all the time, and I'm actually fed up hearing myself talk about it. The Harry Maguire thing. Harry Maguire could go to the World Cup and be amazing, but the minute he has a bad game, we remember that Harry Maguire has bad games, and we always think about that. If Giovanni Van Bronckhorst goes and wins his next 10 games, yeah, it might be fine, but the minute he loses his first one, it'll be, that's what he did before.
Yeah,
and that's a peril. That's peril for a Rangers manager. That's peril for any manager at a club like that. But final game, St Mirren, St Johnstone, Donnie. I thought this might be a 0-0, but I think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be 2-2.
Yeah, St Johnstone, they're certainly in a bit of form. I think they've won the last 3 games. St Mirren need a win. I'll go 2-1 St Mirren. 2-1
St Mirren. Josh, what we got?
I'll go 3-1 St Johnstone. By the way, what about the first goal for St Johnstone today?
An absolute top goal.
Wow.
Yeah, top goal, a ripper. And
that was fair play, by the way.
And full credit needs to go to St Johnstone, because they took their chances and they were outstanding. And it's that sort of result to beat Rangers at home. It kicks you on. It gives you a lot of confidence into the next few games. And that could be something to carry on. But we'll be doing an extra show on Friday. It'll probably either go out Thursday night or Friday morning. We will look back at the midweek games. We will also have a final Scottish football show before the World Cup, which will take place next Monday. We'll have a wee bumper show. We'll do a wee kind of mid-season review and things like that. But we're going to wrap up the show there. I want to say a big thank you to Josh for coming on the show and helping me out. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Mate, pleasure's all mine. Loved it.
Thank you very much.
Good to come on and just chat about football.
It is it's something we all love doing. And Donnie, I really appreciate you coming on and helping out. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. You can hear more of me at Half Hour Fantasy Pod, the unofficial podcast of Scottish football. Myself, Peter, and Tom. And you can also find me on Twitter at FFS_Donnie. So all your fantasy football needs for the Scottish game, Half Hour Fantasy Pod's where you'll find it.
Brilliant. I would make sure to tune into that. I will certainly will be tuning in as often as I do as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having us tuned in. Please follow us on social media. We're now at 10,000 followers on Twitter, and we're growing, so keep that going as well. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels for consistent Scottish football content. Thanks very much, everyone. See you soon. Cheers.